Welcome, traveler. You've wandered far. Through winding paths of forest and field, past stone bridges and old timber, until you've found shelter here, in our little story. If this is your first time in our village, make yourself comfortable. Crawl under the blankets, light a candle, or stoke your fire. Let the cold winds stay outside where they belong. And as we begin our journey into the frozen nights and simple lives of medieval peasants, I invite you to do one thing. Write in the comments where you're listening from, and what time it is. I read them all, and it warms my heart to know where in the world you're joining us from. Is it raining where you are? Snowing? Are the streets silent or humming with life? If you enjoyed this gentle journey through the past, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and consider turning on the fireplace or fan. Let the ambience surround you. Because in this story, you're not just a listener. You're one of us now. You live here, among the thatched roofs and muddy boots, among the candlelight and winter winds, among people who survive not with strength alone, but with each other. So lie back, let your breath slow, and let us take you to another time. The first breath of winter is not marked by snow or frost, but by silence. You wake before the light comes, in a world wrapped in stillness. The thatch above your head is lined with hoarfrost, sparkling faintly in the moonlight seeping through the cracks. The wooden beams creak as the wind presses against the cottage. There's no glass in the windows, just oiled linen, and the cold slips through like a ghost, curling around your bare ankles. You shiver beneath a rough wool blanket, stiff with use and far too thin. Your body, already used to discomfort, recognizes the cold not as something new, but as something old and returning, an old friend with sharp fingers and little mercy. You're in a small room, part of a small house, in a small village somewhere in England. The year is 1376, and the little ice age has begun to tighten its grip. Crops have been meager, and last year's harvest left little to spare. Your family is not starving, yet, but you've learned to make do with less. You glance across the room. Your mother still sleeps, curled near the hearth with your younger sister in her arms. Your father is awake already, feeding twigs into the fire he never let go out entirely. It glows faintly now, more ember than flame. You hear the pop of sap in the wood, and the slight hiss of melting frost on the stone hearth. Up, your father says softly, his voice worn thin with years of labor. The sun won't wait for us. You sit up, wrapping your blanket around your shoulders like a cloak. The stone floor is cruel beneath your feet. You dress quickly, layers upon layers. A tunic, a woolen overshirt, breeches, hand-stitched socks pulled tight to your calves. You search for your mittens and find only one. The other is still damp from yesterday. In the corner sits your boots, hard as iron from the cold. You rub your hands together and push your feet into them anyway, wincing as the leather bites. There's no luxury of waiting for them to thaw. Outside, the village sleeps in frozen silence. Thatched roofs bow under thin layers of snow. The common well is rimmed with ice. Smoke curls lazily from a few chimneys, those with enough wood or dried dung to burn through the night. Most homes look as yours does, dark, shivering, held together by will and rope and luck. You walk to the barn to check on the animals. Inside, it's barely warmer, but the body heat of goats and a single milk cow creates a pocket of breath. The animals bleat softly in greeting. You stroke the cow's flank. She's thin. Too thin. You whisper apologies into her ear, though you know she doesn't understand. Water is carried from the stream, now barely flowing beneath a skin of ice. It must be broken each morning. Your fingers go numb before you reach the house again. Your mother hands you a bowl of pottage, barley, turnip, and a bit of old salted pork, stretched as far as she could manage. It is warm, and warmth is life. You eat silently, grateful. Surviving the night. You've learned to sleep in groups. When the cold is worst, your entire family, mother, father, siblings, sleeps in the same bed or on the same floor, huddled together like puppies. The warmth of another body is more precious than gold. Blankets are shared, bodies rotated so that no one side is exposed too long to the air. At night, you bank the fire carefully, pushing ash over the embers to keep them alive. Matches don't exist. A dead fire means waking early to steal flame from a neighbor, or pray the flint catches quickly in the morning. When the wind howls, you stuff rags into gaps in the wall. When the snow piles high, you welcome it. It insulates the house, plugging holes and muffling sound. But it also means more chores, more water to haul, more wood to find. You line your boots with straw, wrap your hands in scraps. Sometimes you sit on heated stones, taken from the fire and wrapped in cloth, placed at your feet as you sleep. They cool quickly, but every hour of comfort counts. The cold is not just weather. You know the cold is more than a temperature. It is hunger, gnawing and quiet. It is sickness, coughs that never stop, fevers that take in the night. It is brittle bones and frostbitten toes. It is an enemy that takes its time. Children don't always make it. Babies born in winter are swaddled in wool and prayers. The church bells ring often this time of year, and not always for weddings. But you're still here. You've learned how to survive. You know where to find dry kindling even when it's rained for days. You know how to layer your clothes and how to sew tears with frozen fingers. You know the value of neighbors, of silence, of stories told under low ceilings with candlelight flickering on the walls. You know that when the cold comes, you do not fight it. You endure it. And maybe that's enough. The warmth of labor. You begin to understand that warmth is not something given, it is something earned. In the modern world, warmth is summoned with a switch. In your world, it is coaxed from the reluctant earth, fed with sweat and calloused hands. The cold makes no bargains. It waits, silent and patient, to seep into bones that have not moved. So you move. The sun is still climbing when you begin the day's work, but in this season, sunlight is weak, pale and soft like a candle left too long in the rain. It offers no heat, just light. Enough to see your breath mist in front of your face and the frost glittering like crushed glass on the ground. Your father sharpens tools near the shed, a simple wooden lean-to that barely keeps the wind off. His breath huffs from his mouth like smoke from a tired chimney. You join him, and he hands you a battered spade. The handle is worn from 100 winters. The blade has been mended with wire and hope. Dig where the frost is thin, he says. If we wait, the earth will be stone. He's right. The earth is cruel in winter. If you can't till the topsoil now, you won't be able to plant when the time comes. And so you dig, not for food today, but for the possibility of food months from now. That's how the poor live, always working for something not yet here, something not guaranteed. Your hands go numb. Then they burn. Then, for a while, they feel nothing at all. This is normal. You know the cycle. You work until your arms ache, your back protests, and your breath comes in tight gasps. But the movement keeps you warm. Almost. The village is alive with similar rhythms. Across the narrow path, you see neighbors chopping wood, feeding pigs, scraping ice from their door hinges with the edge of a knife. A woman crouches to tend a goose, her hands bare and red. Children haul buckets of slush from the well, slipping and laughing despite the cold. You can smell the smoke of peat fires, the sour sweet scent of boiled cabbage, the faint perfume of beeswax if a wealthier neighbor is preparing for Massachusetts. These scents are as much a part of winter as snow. You pause to rest and press your hands to your chest. Warmth from your core seeps into them slowly. A trick you learned last year, when your fingers almost turned blue. You survived that. You'll survive this. Shelter is never finished. Your home is not a fortress. It is a sieve, patched with scraps and stubbornness. The wind finds the gaps no matter how many cloths you stuff into the walls, no matter how tightly the shutters are latched. But you fight back. Your father uses mud and straw to daub over the cold spots, a messy, frozen job that leaves him coughing in the evenings. Your mother weaves thicker curtains from old cloaks, heavy with years of use. You help lay moss along the floorboards to stop drafts, and you even catch yourself whispering prayers to Saint Bridget, asking for insulation more than blessing. Every night, the fire is nursed with care. It is the beating heart of the home. No one sleeps until it is banked and sheltered, and even then, someone, usually you, wakes to check it before dawn. You've learned to sleep with your back to the hearth, feet tucked into a sibling's knees, hands curled beneath your arms. Your mother lays hot stones at the foot of the bed, wrapped in cloth so they don't burn the straw. The stones lose their heat before midnight. But in those first hours, they make all the difference. You sleep close to your family, not just for warmth, but for safety. To sleep alone in winter is to risk not waking. Heat in unexpected places. Not all warmth comes from fire. Sometimes it comes from the oven after bread is baked, still radiating heat. You sit beside it, pretending to watch for mice, but really just letting your fingers thaw. Sometimes it comes from animals. The barn, dank and rank, is still warmer than the open air. You sit in the straw beside the goat, pretending to check her hooves, and steal a few moments of shared body heat. Sometimes warmth is laughter. Your little sister tells a joke so absurd, something about a fox who becomes a friar, that your mother snorts tea from her nose. You laugh until your ribs hurt, and for a few minutes you forget how cold it is. Sometimes warmth is song. In the evenings, when the wind howls and your breath fogs the ceiling, your father sings the old songs, the ones his mother sang to him, and her mother before her. You don't know all the words, but the melody wraps around you like wool. You close your eyes and hum along. In that moment you are warm. The cold teaches. It teaches you humility. You are small, and the world is vast, and nature does not care if you live or die. But that does not mean you stop trying. It teaches you gratitude. For hot broth. For dry socks. For a roof that doesn't leak. It teaches you patience. The winter will end. Not soon. But eventually. And it teaches you love, quiet, steady love. The kind that wakes to check the fire. The kind that gives the last piece of bread. The kind that remembers to place a stone at the foot of your bed. You survive because they help you. And because you help them. The longest night. The sun has set though, sunset, might be generous. The light didn't vanish so much as it faded, turned gray, then blue, and finally bled into the indigo of night. The cold sharpened with it. Each hour that passes now is colder than the last. You have no clock, but you know the time by the fire's hunger. It's late. The last log burns low, and every pop of the embers sounds like a warning. You'll need to stretch this fire until morning, and your woodpile is nearly gone. The temptation to burn it all is strong, to chase the chill with one roaring blaze, but you've learned better. Winter is long, and this night is only one of many. So you bank the fire carefully, using ash like a blanket. You place the smallest twig atop the glow, and breathe, soft and steady, until it catches like magic. Not too fast. Not too slow. Just enough. Always just enough. That's the rule of winter. Too much, and you waste. Too little, and you die. The layers of survival. Your clothes are not elegant. They are patched and coarse. But each layer is a line of defense. You wear woolen hose beneath your tunic. 2 shirts, one of flax, one of rougher linen. A hooded mantle lined with fur, rabbit, mostly, soft and worn to thinness. Over it all, a thick cloak, fastened with a simple wooden clasp. Each garment bears the smell of smoke, of animals, of unwashed bodies and hard work. And yet it is familiar. Safe. Like armor against the elements. You sleep not on a mattress, but upon straw. It is flattened by use, flecked with seed husks, and shared with fleas, but it is dry. It is better than the frozen ground. The bedding is layered as well, a blanket of coarse wool, then another, and then an old pelt from a lamb that died 2 winters ago. Your breath clouds above your face as you lie there. You are never fully warm. But you are not freezing. That is a kind of success. Company in the cold. You do not sleep alone. Your siblings are curled beside you, forming a knot of warmth and limbs. One rests their feet on your shins. Another is turned toward you, their breath warm against your collarbone. In summer, you argue over space. In winter, you cling without shame. The dog sleeps at your feet, an old mutt who smells like the barn. She is a better blanket than any cloth. When she shifts in her sleep, it lets in a draft, and you grumble softly. She growls in return, then settles again. The walls creak. Wind moans through the thatch. Somewhere outside, a fox screams, a sharp, wild sound like a child in pain. You've heard it before, but it still lifts the hairs on your arms. You whisper a short prayer, not because you are especially pious, but because that's what your grandmother did, and it feels right. Saint Cuthbert, keep the frost from our bones. Saint Agnes, cradle our dreams. Saint Hubert, guard the door. You do not know if they listen. But speaking their names is like building a wall, a thin one, maybe, but a wall nonetheless. Feast and famine. In your dreams you are eating. A haunch of roast boar, dripping with fat. Apples soaked in honey and spices. Bread, white bread, like the Lord's eat. Butter, thick as wax, smeared on crusts so soft you could tear them with your tongue. Mead, golden and warm, poured from a pewter jug. But when you wake, your belly reminds you of reality. Dinner was thin pottage boiled with leeks, onions, and scraps of barley. You sopped it with dark rye, tough as bark. You are not starving, not yet, but your stomach talks to you at night. And dreams are crueler when they taste like food. Still, you are grateful. The pottage was hot, and hot food is hope. Midnight tasks. You rise in the dark to check the fire. The hearth glows faintly, more shadow than flame. You kneel beside it, shifting embers with a charred stick, whispering as you work, not words, but sounds. A rhythm. A lullaby for the coals. You add a chip of wood. It hisses, curls, then catches. The glow brightens. Your hands hover over the heat, cracked and chapped. You wonder if you'll ever feel them fully again. Then you step outside. Not for long. Just enough to feel the bite of real cold, the kind that lives beyond the walls. The stars are knives above you, sharp and countless. Your breath fogs, then freezes on your lashes. The wind scolds your ears, even beneath the hood. But the world is still. The snow squeaks beneath your boots. Far off, an owl calls. Somewhere in the woods, a deer moves. You return quickly, but part of you likes the silence. It reminds you that you are alive. Wisdom in cold places. The elders know tricks. They sleep with bricks heated near the fire. They boil herbs into teas that chase chills from the blood, elderflower, sage, yarrow. They stuff wool into their shoes and wrap their legs with rags. One old man in the village swears by garlic in the toe of each boot. Another hangs dried foxglove above her bed. You learn by watching. No one writes this knowledge down. It is passed in glances, in grunted advice, in the soft mutterings of people who've survived too many winters. And now it is in you too. You know how to stretch a meal, how to patch a roof with eyes still on it, how to boil pine bark if you must, how to wait, how to endure. And then comes light. At last, after what feels like a lifetime wrapped in hours, a change. The blue of the sky begins to soften. The stars fade. A breeze stirs, cold but not cruel. The rooster crows once, then again, as if testing the morning. You stir. So does your family. The room smells of smoke and sweat and sleep. You have made it through another night. And that, in a world like this, is a triumph. The winter kitchen and the ritual of warmth. The first thing you notice when you step into the cottage is the scent, earthy, woodsy, and warm. It's a relief from the biting wind that nips at your ears and curls under your woolen tunic. The low wooden door creaks closed behind you, sealing in the heat that clings to the stone walls. Your fingers, stiff and pink with cold, begin to tingle as they thaw. This is not a kitchen as you know it. There are no gleaming countertops or rows of spice jars. The floor is packed dirt, cold underfoot. The hearth dominates the space, an open stone maw that hisses and crackles with flame. Above it, a blackened iron cauldron swings gently from a hook, steam rising in soft curls from its bubbling contents. You can smell turnips and barley, perhaps a scrap of salted pork if the household is lucky this week. In the far corner, a child dozes on a straw mat, a dog curled beside them. The dog is more than a pet, he's warmth. Body heat is precious in winter, and every creature plays its part. Even the hens are brought inside at night, their clucking a strange but familiar lullaby to those trying to sleep. You move closer to the fire. The hearth is life itself in this season. Food, light, protection from the howling dark, it all comes from here. Your hands hover just above the flames, palms open, as though in prayer. You are not alone. The others do the same, forming a half circle of shadowed faces around the blaze. No one speaks. There is a sacred quiet in this moment, like attending a rural mass. The fire is communion. Someone stirs the pot with a long wooden spoon. It is the oldest daughter, her sleeves rolled high despite the chill. Her hands are red and raw. You watch as she carefully scoops out a portion of soup into a small wooden bowl. She gives it to her younger brother first. Always the youngest are fed before the rest. The hierarchy of hunger is deeply ingrained, passed down like a family heirloom. When your turn comes, you take the bowl with grateful hands. The broth is thin, more water than meal, but it is hot. The steam kisses your cheeks. You sip slowly, letting each mouthful warm you from within. It's more than food. It's ritual. It's survival. Above you, herbs hang from the rafters: sage, thyme, yarrow. Not just for flavor, but for medicine. The smoke of the fire rises into them, infusing them with something else: a sense of place, of home, of continuity, even when nothing else feels certain. Then someone begins to speak. It's the grandfather, wrapped in a thick woolen cloak. His voice is like the fire, crackling, aged, with heat beneath the smoke. He tells a story, one you've heard before, but it never loses its weight. A story of a winter when the river froze so thick they walked across it to the next village. A story of how they boiled leather to make soup. A story of a girl who sang to the wolves and was never seen again. His words are not just entertainment. They are maps. Guides for the young on how to endure the cold. The lessons are layered beneath the metaphors. Be brave, be clever, never waste a scrap of food, never leave the fire unguarded. The children lean in, eyes wide. Even the dog lifts its head. Outside, the wind howls like a lonely beast, and the walls groan under the pressure. Snow hisses against the shutters. But in here, the world holds steady. The fire doesn't just heat the room, it anchors it. You know that when the flames die, everything will be colder: your hands, your stomach, your courage. So the hearth is fed religiously. Each log is chosen carefully. Each ember watched like a newborn. Later, you step outside for a moment to relieve yourself, and the air slaps your lungs. The moon is out now, a ghostly disk in the ink-black sky. The snow reflects its glow in soft blue tones, and every sound seems to travel for miles. You hurry back in, fingers already stiff, and promise yourself you'll never complain about the fire's smoke again. Inside, the family is preparing for sleep. Not in bedrooms, there are none. Just pallets by the wall, hay-stuffed mattresses softened with sheepskins. They sleep in layers, cloaked in every garment they own. There is no shame in sharing warmth. You curl up between cousins, feeling the sharp elbows and bony knees that make you smile despite the discomfort. You're together. You're warm. For now. And then, as the fire burns low and the last bowl is scraped clean, someone begins to hum. It's a quiet tune. Wordless. It moves through the room like smoke, unseen, but sensed in every corner. You close your eyes. Your breath slows. You can hear the logs crackle, the wind murmur, the dogs sigh. The cold is still out there, waiting. But tonight you're in here. You're safe. You're fed. You're human. And you sleep. Beneath the thatch, the secrets of sleeping together. You awaken slowly. Not because of any alarm, or a rooster's cry, but because a chill breeze has crept under the blanket, soft as a breath, sharp as a knife. Your nose is the only part of your body exposed, and it's nearly numb. Everything else is buried in wool, linen, and the warmth of other bodies. You're not in a bed, not as you think of it. You're in a communal nest, a hay-stuffed mattress laid directly on the floor, with two cousins to your right, your younger sister curled at your feet, and a grandmother snoring softly beside the fire, swaddled in every stitch of fabric she owns. In the flickering dawn light, the thatched roof above you looms like the vaulted ceiling of a cathedral. Its golden brown angles seem to shimmer in the half-light, alive with breath and secrets. You've stared at this same roof every morning of your life, yet somehow, it always seems to shift and whisper something new. There's movement beside you. Your cousin shifts, groans softly, and pulls the blanket tighter. The dog lifts his head, then drops it again. No one wants to rise yet. It's too early. Too cold. But someone must stoke the fire. Today, it's your turn. You move slowly, slipping from beneath the covers like a shadow. The moment your feet touch the floor, you flinch. Cold bites your soles with all the fury of a January storm. But you grit your teeth and press on, your breath already puffing invisible clouds. The embers are faint, no flame, just the dull glow of coals beneath a crust of ash. You kneel, blow gently, then again, until a soft orange pulse returns. You feed it with kindling, scraps of bark, a curl of straw from the bedding. Soon, the fire sighs awake. Its light flickers across the cottage walls, and warmth begins to crawl out into the frozen silence. The others murmur in their sleep. The fire is like a gentle bell, calling them back from dreams. This, you think, is the true art of survival. Not in grand battles or in storied heroics, but in kindling flame from ash, in layering warmth upon warmth, in knowing that each small act, laying kindling, sharing heat, holding close, is an offering to the long dark winter, a quiet defiance of its hunger. By now, the room begins to stir. Someone groans. A cough echoes. Your sister wiggles out from beneath the blankets, her hair a halo of sleep-tangled straw. She shivers, then scurries to the fire like a mouse to a warm stone. Breakfast is thin gruel today. It almost always is in midwinter. Made from oats soaked overnight, cooked slowly over the revived fire with a pinch of salt, if any remains. It's flavorless, but hot. The bowls are passed hand to hand, and you eat without complaint. One of the younger boys tries to sneak a second portion. He's caught, scolded, then quickly forgiven. There is too little food for anger. After the meal, your family begins their rituals of the morning. Clothes are shaken out and put back on, often the same ones slept in. Cloaks are fastened. Stockings tugged high. Boots, if owned, are stuffed with straw to ward off the cold. There's no washing, not in this weather. Water would freeze before it touched your skin. Cleanliness is a dream for warmer days. Work waits. The men and older boys go out to tend the animals, if you're lucky enough to have them. The pigs must be checked. Chickens fed. The donkey, grumpy and shaggy, needs its hooves scraped. Ice must be broken to get to water. Fences checked, though most are half buried in snow. You're tasked with gathering more fuel. Fuel is everything. Fuel is life. In summer, it's firewood. But now, in the depths of winter, even sticks are scarce. You learn to treasure every scrap. Twigs, dried bracken, and most of all, dung. Yes, animal dung. Dried and shaped into patties in the warmer months, it burns surprisingly well. It smokes, yes. It stinks sometimes. But it warms. That's all that matters. You set off toward the common, burlap sack in hand, boots crunching through icy ruts. You stop often, bending, picking, scraping frost from potential kindling. Others are out too. A girl from the next cottage nods at you, her cheeks red with cold. You share a quiet look. Not a word. Just shared understanding. By noon your fingers are stiff, but your sack is full. You return to the cottage. Smoke curls from the chimney now, a beacon of survival. The fire you kindled that morning still lives, fed lovingly by those who stayed behind. The warmth greets you like an old friend. You empty your sack by the hearth. The smell of burning herbs fills the air. Your grandmother has thrown some into the flames, yarrow, mugwort, maybe a bit of lavender dried last summer. She says it keeps away the evil that rides on winter winds. You believe her. In the afternoon, you repair the thatch. It's dangerous work, climbing up onto the slick roof. But the wind has torn a patch loose, and the cold seeps through. You climb slowly, straw tucked under your arm, tied in small bundles. Each one is jammed into place, layered and packed tight. It's crude, but it works. You look out across the village. Smoke rises from a dozen chimneys. Snow clings to every roof. A few figures move slowly across the common, bundled against the frost. Everything is hushed. The world has the silence of snow. When you climb down, your arms are tired, and your face is frozen, but the roof is whole again. The cottage will hold heat. The fire will do its part. That night you sleep the deep, dreamless sleep of the exhausted. Wrapped again in layers. Pressed close to family. The fire low, but alive. Outside, the stars shine like ice chips. Wolves howl far off in the forest, and the wind rattles the shutters. But you are warm. You are a peasant in medieval winter, and you have survived another day. The bread and the blistering day. The rooster has not yet crowed, but you are already awake. Not by choice. Your body stirs with the first flicker of dull gray that leaks through the slats in the wall. A light not bright enough to call sunlight, but enough to awaken your instincts. The world is hushed, blanketed still in the night's chill, and yet your skin is clammy, warmed only by the mass of rough-spun wool and the shared breath of family pressed together in the dark. Your stomach is hollow, almost musical in its ache. You wait a moment, listening, to the creak of the rafters overhead, to the faint rustle of straw as someone shifts nearby. A cough breaks the quiet, your mother perhaps. The sort of cough that never quite leaves. You blink into the dark, then rise carefully from the heap of limbs and blankets. The hearth is a black maw now, cold, save for a single stubborn ember flickering in its depths. You stir it gently, feeding it with dry moss and twigs until a small flame catches, casting orange shadows that tremble on the cracked walls. The house is a single room. You can see everything from here. Your father's boots, patched and bowed. The loom your sister uses, half-finished threads draped across it like cobwebs. The wooden table where your mother will knead the dough, if the flour holds out. This morning, like every other, begins with bread. But first, the grain must be fetched. You step outside into the dawn mist. It clings to the ground like a ghost, swirling softly around your ankles. The air smells of wet earth and dung, of thatch and charcoal. The village is still, just low shapes of roofs under a milky sky. The chapel's bell tower the only thing that rises into the air like a question. You walk barefoot down the narrow path, your feet calloused enough to barely feel the dew. The mill stands by the stream, its wheel groaning to life as another boy, not much older than you, tugs at the ropes. You trade a measure of oats, grown in a thin patch of field behind your cottage, for coarsely ground flour. The exchange is silent, nods passing between you, the language of shared hardship. By the time you return, smoke curls from a few other chimneys. The village stirs. Your mother is already at the table, sleeves rolled high, arms dusted in white. The flour is mixed with water, no yeast, not this time, and she kneads with rough palms, folding and turning, until the dough rises ever so slightly with warmth from the hearth. She tears it into small lumps. Flatbread. Easier to cook. You help, pressing them into rough circles. The pan is set over fire, dry and blackened. The smell of toasting grain fills the room, and your stomach clenches with longing. You are lucky today. There is enough for everyone. You sit in a circle on the floor, eating slowly, carefully. The bread is hot and dry and a little bitter, but it fills the space in your belly that howls for attention. For a few moments, there is quiet, even peace. You chew and let your thoughts drift. But already the day begins again. The field awaits. Outside, the sun burns slowly through the morning mist, and the fields stretch out like patchwork, bordered by hedgerows and trodden paths. You carry a wooden tool, worn, too small for adult hands but better suited to yours. It's planting season. Turnips, beans, rye, whatever might grow in the poor soil. You work beside your father, your uncle, your cousin. The land is hard. The soil is stubborn. Each step brings you closer to blistered hands and an aching back. But there is rhythm in it too. Dig. Drop. Cover. Step. Dig. Drop. Cover. Step. Sweat beads on your brow despite the chill, dripping into your eyes. You pause, wipe it away with your sleeve, and squint toward the treeline where the Lord's woods begin. Beyond that forbidden space, all the firewood you collect must come from fallen branches. To cut down a tree is theft. You've seen the stalks in the village square. You remember the boy who lost 2 fingers after stealing a rabbit from the Lord's trap. A hawk circles overhead. The crows have already landed in the next field, looking for whatever you've planted. A brief escape. At midday, you are allowed a short rest. You sit beneath a crooked tree, chewing a scrap of leftover bread with a hunk of onion, tears springing to your eyes not from emotion, but from the sting of it. Around you, others do the same. Some talk softly. Others just stare into the distance, faces lined though still young. Your sister joins you, her apron dusty, hands reddened from carrying water back and forth from the well. She sits, back straight, and for a moment you share a silence that feels like kinship. A world made tolerable by the brief spaces in between the labor. You wonder idly if she dreams of more. Of cities, of gowns, of finery. You've heard stories from passing travelers, of London, of York, of places where stone buildings rise like castles, where markets overflow with strange fruits, where nobles ride horses draped in silk. But those are stories. And this is your life. Night again. By the time you return home, the sun hangs low and red in the sky, like a wound slowly closing. Dinner is pottage, watery, with a few beans, a bit of turnip, perhaps a scrap of bacon if you're blessed. You eat in silence again, listening to the crackle of the fire. Outside, owls begin to stir. A fox screams in the distance. Your father tells you to bolt the door. Night presses in, and you crawl back into the heap of blankets, body aching, eyes dry. Sleep comes like a wave, and you let it take you. Because tomorrow, the rhythm begins again. The long winter's grip and the will to endure. You wake to a biting cold that claws through your thin woolen blanket and stings your skin like 1,000 tiny needles. The first sharp breath of morning air, frozen and crisp, fills your lungs, reminding you how cruel the world outside can be. You lay still for a moment, feeling the chill seep into your bones, reluctant to move but knowing the day will not wait for your weakness. Outside, a heavy blanket of snow muffles the village into silence. The world beyond your cottage's fragile wooden walls is a monochrome of white and gray. Icicles hang like glass daggers from the thatched roofs, and the frozen river groans beneath the weight of its icy prison. Even the trees seem lifeless, their skeletal branches scratching at the gray sky like desperate hands. The cold is not just an enemy, it is a constant force, an invisible predator that threatens every breath, every moment of warmth, every scrap of hope. The hearth, your only sanctuary. You struggle to your feet, your joints stiff and aching from the long night. With numb fingers, you stumble toward the hearth, that sacred space where fire once danced and life seemed possible. But now, it is reduced to a pile of gray ash and stubborn embers, whispering weakly in the cold. With trembling hands, you gather dried moss, tiny twigs, and scraps of bark, precious fuel scavenged during the brief daylight hours. You coax and breathe gently, as if your very breath could breathe life back into the dying flames. Slowly, a flicker ignites. Orange tongues lick at the kindling, bringing flickers of warmth and hope. Your mother enters quietly, her face lined with worry and weariness. She adds more twigs and feeds the fire with her practiced hands. The warmth begins to chase away the numbness from your fingers and toes, and you feel, however briefly, the fierce comfort of a small blaze in this frozen world. The burden of hunger. But the fire's warmth cannot fill the gnawing emptiness in your belly. Your family's stores are dangerously low: hard bread, salted meat, a few dried beans. You remember the long months of labor in the fields, when you planted the seeds and hoped for a bountiful harvest. Now, with the ground frozen solid beneath the snow, those hopes seem a distant memory. Today, like every day this season, is a battle to stretch the meager supplies. You watch your mother measure out a handful of coarse flour, mixing it with water to make a thin, tough bread that barely satisfies the hunger gnawing inside you. The taste is bitter and dry, but it is all you have. The village granary offers no relief. The elders dole out small rations, the precious grain guarded carefully against both human need and the relentless cold that threatens to rout what little remains. You listen to their hushed talks, the worried murmurs of what may come if the snows last too long. The forest, a forbidden hope. Outside, the forest lies silent, a dark wall of frozen trees and icy branches. It is both a source of life and fear. Fallen branches may provide firewood, but the dense woods are also home to dangers: wolves prowling hungrily, and the Lord's gamekeepers watching for any who dare steal a rabbit or deer. You remember the tale of the young boy caught stealing a rabbit, his hands bound and left to freeze in the stocks as a warning to others. Hunger is a harsh master, but the law is cruel and unyielding. Still, you dream of venturing beyond the village, of finding hidden caches of food or bringing down a rabbit or pheasant. But each day the risk outweighs the reward. Instead, you gather what little deadwood you can find, careful not to step too far. Community in the cold. The village itself becomes a fragile island of survival. Neighbors share what little they have, exchanging stories and scarce food. Children huddle together for warmth, their pale faces bright with the flickering firelight. The priest visits from house to house, his words of faith a balm for weary souls. Your family leans on one another, your father's strong hands, your mother's quiet strength, your sister's small laughter that breaks the long silence. Together, you face the endless winter, clinging to hope like a flame in the dark. The endless night. As night falls, darkness creeps swiftly over the land. The cold intensifies, seeping into every crack and crevice. You lie in your bed of straw and rags, your breath forming small clouds that vanish into the frigid air. Sleep is uneasy. Dreams are haunted by visions of barren fields, empty larders, and the relentless frost. You clutch a small wooden talisman your mother gave you, a symbol of protection and resilience. Whispering a prayer, you ask for dawn, for warmth, for the mercy of spring's return. You close your eyes, letting the dark pull you under, knowing tomorrow the struggle will begin again. But you endure. Because survival is not just about strength, it is about will, spirit, and the quiet flame of hope burning deep inside. The unseen struggles, illness, injury, and the healing hands. As the relentless cold of winter presses down upon your village, you quickly learn that the biting chill is not the only enemy you face. Deep within the cracked wooden walls of your humble cottage, sickness lurks, silent, invisible, yet no less deadly. In a world where the very act of breathing is a battle, the arrival of fever or infection can be a sentence of despair. You awaken one morning feeling as if a weight crushes your chest. Your body aches with a fierce burning heat, while a thick, rattling cough tears from your throat. Your breath comes in shallow gasps, the cold air outside mocking your struggle as it swirls against the frost-covered window panes. You know what this means. Disease has crept in again, and your chances to survive the winter have just grown thinner. The weight of sickness. In this harsh time, the concept of health is fragile and fleeting. There are no doctors in the village with their knowledge of anatomy or potions to mend broken bodies. The closest thing you have is the village healer, an elder woman with eyes sharp as flint and hands worn from decades of tending wounds and ailments. She moves through the snow-covered lanes carrying bundles of dried herbs, her footsteps muffled against the frozen earth. Her presence brings a small flicker of hope amid despair. She speaks softly, mixing her bitter brews with practiced care, willow bark to dull the pain, elderberries to fight fevers, and yarrow to staunch bleeding and cleanse wounds. But her remedies are often little more than comfort, fighting time as much as illness. You listen to her instructions: how to keep feverish skin cool with damp cloths, how to wrap aching limbs tightly against the cold, how to coax a sick child to sip at weak teas and broth. Her words are a fragile lifeline, a glimmer of light in the encroaching darkness of winter's grip. Injuries that refuse to heal. The bitter cold makes every wound more dangerous. A cut sustained while chopping firewood, or a scrape from gathering kindling may seem small, but infection is a merciless predator in these frozen months. Flesh numbed by frostbite becomes brittle, and the slowed circulation allows harmful bacteria to thrive. You remember the blacksmith's son, young and strong once, who slipped on ice while hauling logs. His leg broke badly. With no proper splints or medicine, the bone turned black, gangrene spreading like wildfire. Despite the healer's efforts and the prayers of the village, he was lost before the snow melted. Your own hands bear the marks of endless toil, cracked, raw, and bleeding. Every wound is a threat, every pain a reminder that survival depends on constant vigilance. You clean your cuts in icy water, rub in the herbal salves, and pray for healing that may never come quickly enough. The role of faith, superstition, and ritual. When human knowledge fails, faith becomes a fortress. Candles flicker in the darkened village church, casting long shadows on ancient stones worn smooth by generations. You hear the priest's solemn voice echo, uttering prayers for protection and healing, his hands raised to bless the sick and suffering. The holy water sprinkled on brows and doorways is believed to shield from the unseen forces that carry disease. Yet superstition weaves through every hearth and heart. Some villagers clutch charms, carved bones, small wooden crosses, or herbs hung in bundles from rafters, tokens believed to repel evil spirits and curses thought to cause illness. Old wives whisper of witches in the woods, of curses laid by jealous neighbors, and of spirits disturbed by the winter's cruelty. These beliefs blend with reality, offering comfort and warning in equal measure. The invisible enemy becomes tangible in these stories, shaping the way you move through your days, careful, wary, respectful of the delicate balance between life and death. The children's plight, fragility, and loss. Children are the most vulnerable among you. Their small bodies shiver beneath thin woolen wraps, their faces pale, eyes glassy with fever. When illness strikes a child, the entire village feels the weight of fear. You remember little Thomas, who coughed all through the night, the sound a harsh rasp that seemed to echo from his fragile chest. His mother never left his side, her arms wrapped tight around him, her hands trembling as she tried to warm him. She fed him weak broth made from turnips and dried herbs, whispered prayers into his ear. Yet many children do not survive these bitter months. Their graves, simple wooden crosses near the edge of the village, stand as silent witnesses to the winter's toll. You walk past them on your way to chores, their names a bitter whisper in the cold wind, a reminder of the fragile thread that holds life. The strength of community care. In this harsh landscape, survival depends not just on your own strength but on the strength of those around you. The village forms a tight, interwoven web of care. Neighbors share what little they have: firewood, dried herbs, small comforts. When sickness claims someone's strength, others step in. The village healer teaches mothers and daughters the art of simple remedies, how to recognize danger signs, how to clean wounds with the limited resources at hand. You remember the nights when you were too weak to rise, and neighbors brought warm broth and fresh water. Children delivered firewood to keep your hearth burning bright. These acts of kindness knit together a fragile community, a lifeline in the midst of despair. The will to survive. Even as illness gnaws at your body and the cold seeps deeper, your spirit holds fast. Each breath is a victory. Each moment of warmth, a treasure. You cling to the sounds of the fire crackling in the hearth, to the worn quilt covering your shivering frame. You listen to your mother's gentle voice singing a lullaby, a melody older than the village itself. Your prayers rise with the smoke from the chimney, asking for the return of spring, for the thawing of frozen earth, for the gentle sun to warm your bones. You are but one small life in a vast and unforgiving world, yet your will to endure burns with the stubborn light of a candle in the dark. The winter's grip, food scarcity, hunger, and the fight to stay alive. The cold tightens its grip on the land as winter deepens. Outside your small cottage, the fields lie barren beneath thick blankets of snow and ice. The once fertile soil that fed your family for months is now a frozen wasteland, silent and unforgiving. Each day, you wake with a gnawing emptiness in your belly that no fire or blanket can fully chase away. Hunger is a shadow that stalks every moment of your day. The stores of grain you and your family painstakingly gathered in the warmer months have dwindled to mere handfuls. The bread you bake is coarse and bitter, made from a mix of rye and whatever else you can scavenge, often burned at the edges and barely filling your stomach. You swallow each bite slowly, trying to savor the small comfort it brings, though it feels like sand on your tongue. The daily struggle for food. The morning light finds you bundled in threadbare wool, stepping outside to tend to the livestock. The animals are weak, their coats dull and patchy, barely surviving on the frozen grasses beneath the snow. The chickens huddle together for warmth, the pigs lie close to the fire inside their pens, and the cow's breath puffs white in the frigid air. You know their fate rests in your hands. Every bit of milk or eggs they produce is a precious gift, a rare supplement to your meager diet. You carefully ration what little food you have, dividing it among family members, mindful of the weakest among you, children and the elderly. As the day stretches on, the cold makes each task a test of endurance. You venture out, trying to gather firewood, but the forest seems emptier than before. Snow hides the roots and brambles where you might find wild herbs or edible greens. Your hands are numb before you return, barely able to grip the rough wood. The pain of hunger. Hunger is not just a physical ache, it gnaws at your spirit. Your body feels weak and sluggish, muscles burning from lack of fuel. The cold bites harder when your stomach is empty. Your thoughts grow fuzzy, and sleep comes fitfully, plagued by nightmares of starvation. You remember stories told by elders, tales of famine so cruel that neighbors turned on each other, desperate for scraps to survive. Hunger breeds fear, suspicion, and sometimes madness. Yet, despite the pain, you press on. The thought of your family, their faces pale but trusting, gives you strength. You know that giving up is not an option. The role of the community in feeding the many. In these darkest times, the village itself becomes a fragile community of sharing and sacrifice. Those who still have a little grain or salted meat offer what they can, trading for warmth or help with chores. The village council meets in the church hall to discuss how to divide food fairly, trying to prevent hoarding and disputes. You witness a quiet heroism in this sharing, simple acts that mean the difference between life and death. A woman offers you a small bowl of porridge, thick and hot, stirred with bits of dried fruit. A child hands you a crust of bread, saved from the morning meal. These gifts taste sweeter than any feast. The risk of starvation and its toll. Still, many families are not so lucky. The weak fall ill, unable to resist disease. Children's bodies wither, and mothers weep beside them in the cold dark of night. Starvation is a slow thief, robbing strength and hope alike. You watch as neighbors disappear, their homes left empty or abandoned. The village feels smaller with each passing week, the snow-covered graves a silent testament to the winter's cruelty. Small joys amid hardship. But not all is despair. Inside your humble home, moments of joy flicker like candlelight. The warmth of a fire shared with family, the soft laughter of children playing with carved wooden toys, the comfort of a woolen blanket pulled tight against the chill. You learn to find happiness in small things, a roasted turnip, a cup of weak ale, the brief sunbeam through frosted window panes. These moments sustain you, weaving threads of resilience that keep you going. The unbreakable spirit. Despite the hardships, your spirit remains unbroken. You become more than just a survivor, you become a guardian of hope. The winter may be long, the nights cold and unforgiving, but you are alive. And as the days slowly lengthen and the first signs of thaw appear, you hold on to the belief that spring will come, bringing life, warmth, and new beginnings. You close your eyes by the fire, the crackle of burning wood lulling you toward rest, knowing tomorrow will bring new struggles but also new chances to endure. Healing without medicine, how peasants fought illness and injury in the coldest months. As the bitter wind howls through the cracks of your humble home, you feel more than just the chill, you sense the ever-present threat of illness. In medieval times, medical care is not a guaranteed cure but a daily battle for every breath. With no modern medicine, no doctors, and no pharmacies, you must rely on old knowledge, folk remedies, and the strength of your own body. Your body is already weakened by hunger, cold, and relentless labor. Every scratch, every cut, every bruise carries a deadly risk. You have long understood that even the smallest wound can turn fatal if infection sets in. And during winter, this danger grows exponentially. Folk medicine, herbs and prayers. Nearby lives an old woman, the village healer or wise woman. Her hands are wrinkled, her eyes sharp as they watch those who suffer. She gathers herbs and roots from the surrounding forest, studying their scent and texture, knowing how to brew potions, ointments, and poultices. She uses what nature provides, valerian root to calm your nerves, chamomile to reduce inflammation, cinnamon to warm your body. She prepares bitter teas that you swallow with hope, hoping they will ease fever or quell a cough. There's no guarantee the remedies will work, but refusing to try is equivalent to surrender. At night, when the walls seem thin and the cold bites harder, villagers pray. They call on saints and angels, begging for protection and healing. Prayer is not just ritual, it is a lifeline, a fragile thread holding you to life. Winter illnesses. Winter brings more than cold, it carries diseases, pneumonia, bronchitis, flu. Without warmth and proper nourishment, your lungs fill with mucus and your cough rips your chest apart. You watch a neighbor's child fall ill, looking like a shadow of their former self. There is no doctor, and even if there were, no medicine to cure such sickness. Only warmth, care, and hope remain. Cuts and injuries freeze in the frost, turning treatment into a separate ordeal. You know a small wound can become infected, leading to gangrene, often meaning amputation or death. Fighting injuries. If you break a bone or suffer a serious injury, treatment means enduring new pain. Your family fashions splints from wood and wraps wounds in cloth. But without knowledge of antiseptics or surgery, infections spread swiftly. The cold, dry air slows healing. Doctors are rare. At best, a local monk or healer may come to assist. Inside the cottage, many candles burn, and fragrant herbs hang from the ceiling to ward off the evil spirits of illness. More ritual than medicine, but comforting nonetheless. Mental struggles in winter. Besides physical suffering, you fight to hold on mentally. Endless darkness, cold, and fear eat away at your soul. Loneliness and anxiety become constant companions. Nights are restless, haunted by nightmares of death, starvation, or losing your loved ones. But you learn to endure, sharing worries with those closest, singing songs, recalling jokes heard from neighbors. Small joys, warm tea, a fire's glow, children's laughter, become your anchors in a cruel world. Hope and strength of spirit. Despite everything, you hold on to hope. Every dawn offers another chance to survive, to see the first signs of spring and smell the earth thawing. You know your ancestors endured and triumphed. You are not alone in this fight. Every day survived is a small victory over death. And it is this inner strength that makes you a true medieval hero, not clad in armor, but with a spirit that withstands the harshest trials. Breathe deeply. Feel the warmth of the fire beside you. Take this knowledge to heart and prepare yourself for the next day, when new challenges await the medieval peasant's life. Hunger in the frost. How peasants found food when winter starved the land. The cold deepens, creeping into every corner of your life like a slow, unyielding shadow. The ground beneath the thick frost is hard and unyielding, locked in a frozen slumber that shows no mercy. Fields once full of waving crops now lie barren and empty, their rich soil swallowed by snow and ice. The rivers that once sang with life now whisper softly beneath sheets of cracked ice, revealing only a few fish darting beneath the surface. This is a world where every scrap of food becomes a precious treasure, every morsel a battle won against nature's harshest trial. Your storehouses, simple wooden granaries raised on stilts to keep pests out, hold only remnants of the harvest. The sacks of barley, oats, and rye that once brimmed are now threadbare. Each handful you draw out is a reminder of the relentless passage of time and the creeping hunger that gnaws at your belly. Winter is not just a season, it is a test of endurance, a slow grind that separates those who survive from those who do not. The meager winter diet. Your meals have shrunk to the bare essentials. There is no room for luxury or variety. The bread you eat is dense and coarse, baked from grain ground in a communal mill, often mixed with bran and chaff. It's dry and tough, better for filling than flavor. Salted pork, preserved in barrels with layers of salt and fat, is rationed carefully, a small chunk shared among family members to avoid waste. Dried beans and peas, stored in clay pots, form the base of many meals, boiled into a thick pottage, a stew-like gruel that warms your insides but offers little joy. Cheese, if you are lucky, made from the milk of the village's few goats or cows, is crumbly and sour. Sweetness is a distant memory. Honey, once collected from wild hives, has long since been used up. Fruit is non-existent. No apples on trees, no berries and brambles, all claimed by the frost. Foraging and dangerous ventures. The few moments when the sun shows its face during winter are brief and fleeting. On these rare days, you bundle yourself tightly in rough woolen garments, wrapped in layers that scratch and itch but provide warmth, and venture beyond the village borders. You scour the frozen earth for roots, tubers, and whatever wild herbs might have survived the cold. The bark of certain trees, stripped carefully, can be boiled into a bitter broth. But this foraging is not without danger. The forests are darker and more menacing in winter. Wolves, hungry and bold, lurk closer to human settlements, their eyes glinting in the twilight. The wind carries sharp, bitter cold that bites through even the thickest cloak. Fingers become numb, feet ache with the chill, and every step risks frostbite or injury. Still, you push on, for your children's sake, for the hope that this meager forage might stave off starvation just a little longer. Hunting, a risky necessity. If foraging is the cautious approach, hunting is a desperate gamble. With crude bows fashioned from yew wood and arrows tipped with flint, or simple snares and traps set along game trails, you attempt to catch rabbits, hares, or even wild birds. The small rewards from hunting can stretch a family's provisions, but the risk is great. Hunters disappear into the twilight mist for hours, sometimes days, returning with empty hands or worse, injuries from sharp thorns, frozen streams, or desperate animals defending their territory. Yet the chance of fresh meat, even a small bird, is enough to draw you into the cold again and again. The vital role of the village community. In this brutal time, the bonds between neighbors become lifelines. Villages gather what little they have, pooling resources, sharing what grain, meat, or root vegetables remain. The village hall, a large timber structure warmed by a great central hearth, becomes a place of refuge and warmth where stories are shared and plans are made. Communal meals, though rare, are precious. You sit close to one another on wooden benches, passing around bowls of thick pottage flavored with whatever herbs are left. The smell of smoke and wood mingles with the earthy scent of root vegetables. These moments remind you that despite the hunger and hardship, you are not alone. The community's survival depends on generosity, cooperation, and shared strength. Starvation's grim shadow. But even with shared effort, starvation stalks the village like a silent predator. It is a creeping shadow that drains vitality and steals hope. Children grow pale and thin, their cheeks hollow and eyes sunken. Adults grow weak, their movements slow and burdensome. The elderly, already fragile, fade quietly in the cold dark. Families cling to whatever scraps they can find, rationing meals down to near nothing. Bark bread, made by grinding tree bark into flour and mixing it with grain, becomes a last desperate measure. It is barely edible, bitter and dry, but it keeps the stomach from gnawing completely empty. Every day is a struggle to stretch the last grains of food into another meal, to prevent the slow descent into hunger's cruel embrace. The mental and emotional toll. Hunger is not just a physical affliction. It weighs heavily on the mind and spirit. The constant ache in your belly is matched by a gnawing anxiety that clouds your thoughts and steals your dreams. You worry for your children's futures, pray for the coming of spring, and struggle to keep despair at bay. Yet amid the hardship, the peasant's spirit endures. There is resilience in every shared meal, every kind word, every effort to keep going despite the cold and the hunger. You remind yourself that winter will end, the earth will thaw, and with it, hope will return. Now close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the biting cold outside your humble home. Feel the fragile warmth of the hearth, the roughness of your woolen cloak, the bittersweet taste of your meager meal. Hear the crackle of wood fire and the whispered stories shared between neighbors who, like you, fight to survive another night. This is the reality of medieval winter, harsh, unyielding, yet tempered by the unbreakable human will to survive. The hearth, the heart of the peasant home in the freezing cold. As the biting winds howl outside, and the frozen earth remains locked in winter's icy grip, your home becomes your sanctuary, the hearth, your lifeline. In a world where frost threatens every breath you take, the fire inside your humble cottage is more than just warmth. It is hope, safety, and survival itself. The central hearth, more than just a fire. In the center of your low-ceilinged wooden home lies the hearth, a wide stone or clay fireplace, often just a simple pit dug into the earthen floor or surrounded by rough stones. This hearth provides heat, a place to cook the meager food you have, and a light that pushes back the darkness of long winter nights. Smoke curls upward from the burning logs, slipping out through a hole in the roof or small chimney. Though the smoke sometimes stings your eyes and blackens the walls, it is a small price to pay for the life-giving warmth it offers. Around the hearth, your family gathers each evening, seeking comfort in its glow. Fuel for the fire, gathering and rationing wood. Firewood is precious and scarce during winter. You spend days beforehand chopping, stacking, and drying wood, knowing that every log burned means less fuel for tomorrow. Old branches, fallen limbs, and even dried dung serve as kindling and fuel when wood is scarce. Each log is carefully measured, too large, and it burns too fast, wasting warmth. Too small, and it burns too quickly, needing constant tending. The fire is tended carefully through the night by whoever is awake, a silent vigil against the cold that creeps through every crack and crevice. The hearth as a gathering place. Around the fire, stories are told, tales of saints, heroes, and past hardships. Grandparents pass down legends and lessons to children, whose eyes gleam in the flickering light. The fire is the village's oral library, preserving memory and tradition amid hardship. The hearth is also where practical tasks happen, spinning wool, mending clothes, and grinding grain. Hands warmed by the fire work tirelessly, crafting the very tools and clothing needed for survival. Cooking in the cold. Meals prepared at the hearth are simple but vital. Pots of pottage bubble over the flames, a stew of beans, vegetables, and whatever scraps of meat or salted fish you can spare. Bread bakes slowly on stones warmed by the fire, while herbs gathered from nearby woods are dried over the flames, adding flavor and medicinal properties. Cooking is a delicate balance. Too much fire, and food burns. Too little, and it remains raw or cold. Every meal is a victory against the cold, a moment of comfort and nourishment. The hearth and health. The warmth from the fire wards off frostbite and illness. Cold, damp conditions breed sickness, and the hearth's heat keeps damp clothes dry and bodies warm. Illnesses like pneumonia and bronchitis are deadly in winter, so the fire's warmth is a vital defense. You nurse sick family members close to the hearth, wrapping them in wool and feeding them broth. The fire's crackle is a quiet reminder of life and hope amid suffering. The long night vigil. Winter nights are long and relentless, stretching into endless darkness. Sleep comes in fits and starts, broken by the cold or the creaking of the wooden walls. Around the hearth, you and your family keep watch, taking turns feeding the fire and comforting one another. The flickering flames cast dancing shadows that mimic ghosts and spirits, a reminder of the medieval belief that darkness holds unseen dangers. But your focus is on the here and now, the next log to burn, the warmth on your skin, the sound of loved ones breathing beside you. The hearth as a symbol. More than just a fire, the hearth symbolizes home, family, and resilience. It is a beacon in the harsh medieval world, a small circle of safety in a landscape dominated by cold and hardship. No matter how brutal the winter outside, the hearth offers a place to rest, to gather strength, and to dream of spring's return. Now settle in by your own hearth or cozy spot. Imagine the smoky warmth, the crackling flames, and the soft murmur of family voices sharing stories. Let the fire's glow lull you into a peaceful rest, carrying you through the long winter night. Part 12. The Frozen Fields. The relentless battle against hunger and frost. As the fire's warmth fades behind you, and you step outside into the biting cold, the world of the frozen fields stretches before you, vast, white, and merciless. The frost has gripped the land in an unyielding embrace. The trees are bare skeletons, their branches brittle and coated with ice. The soil, once rich and dark, is now hard and frozen, cracked beneath your worn boots. Every breath you take hovers like a ghost in the frigid air, and every step crunches loudly in the silence of winter's grip. The endless challenge of feeding a family. Winter is the harshest test of your survival, for the land has closed its doors. The fields you once tended with sweat and hope now lie fallow, covered in snow and ice. The crops harvested in autumn, a precious few sacks of rye, barley, and oats, are all that stand between your family and starvation. In your cramped, smoky cottage, you carefully ration every grain, every morsel. Each day's portion is weighed against the hunger in your children's eyes and the aching in your own belly. There is no luxury here, only the stark reality that to eat means another day alive, to waste means death. Preserving the harvest, salt, smoke, and stone. Before winter's first frost, you and your neighbors worked tirelessly to preserve food. Meat and fish were salted and smoked, stored in cool, dark cellars or hung from rafters to dry. Root vegetables, turnips, carrots, and parsnips, were buried deep in straw-filled pits or clay-lined boxes to keep them from freezing solid. But these stores are precious and limited. Every time you slice a salted hunk of pork or crack open a pot of root stew, you pray it will last until the thaw. The frozen land outside your door. Venturing beyond your door in winter means confronting a hostile wilderness. Snowdrifts hide treacherous ice patches. The cold numbs your fingers and toes, threatening frostbite. Water sources may freeze over, forcing you to break the ice or rely on melted snow, which offers little relief from thirst. Travel is perilous. Heavy snows can isolate villages for days, cutting off any chance of trade or aid. The market towns where you once bartered grain for cloth or tools now seem like distant dreams, unreachable in this frozen world. The long day of toil, chopping wood and gathering fuel. With firewood dwindling, your day begins before dawn, splitting logs with aching arms and stacking the precious fuel carefully. The forest, though bleak and silent, offers its last gifts. dead branches and fallen trees buried beneath the snow. Each bundle of wood is a lifeline. Without it, the hearth dies, and with it, your chance to survive the night. The work is grueling, your breath steaming in the air, fingers stiff with cold, muscles trembling from exhaustion. The burden of the livestock. Even as the cold seeps into your bones, your animals need tending. Chickens huddle under sparse straw in the coop, their feathers fluffed against the chill. Goats and sheep crowd together in barns, their breaths misting in the icy air. You break the frozen ground to bring feed to the animals, hay, leftover grain, or whatever scraps remain. The livestock represent survival: milk, eggs, wool, and meat. Their loss would be catastrophic. Illness and death in the winter. The bitter cold brings sickness like a shadow. Coughs turn into pneumonia. Fevers rise unchecked. Your home, with its smoke-filled air and cramped quarters, becomes a crucible for disease. Medicinal herbs are scarce. You rely on simple remedies: willow bark for pain, chamomile for fever, but often these are not enough. The loss of even one family member, especially a child or elder, weighs heavily on the heart. The solace of community. Despite hardship, the village does not crumble. Neighbors share what little they have: a bowl of stew, a warm cloak, a kind word. In the freezing silence, community ties grow stronger. Village gatherings are rare but treasured. Around the hearth of the largest house, stories and prayers are exchanged, songs rise to chase away despair. The sense of belonging becomes a vital shield against the loneliness of winter. The unseen work of the women. While men tend the firewood and animals, women face their own endless toil. They scrub soot from the hearth, mend clothes threadbare from months of wear, and prepare food with dwindling resources. Their hands grow cracked and raw from washing in icy water, their bodies bent low over spinning wheels and looms. Women are the quiet backbone of survival, weaving warmth and care into every corner of the home. The children's world, play and survival. Children, despite the cold, find moments of lightness. They craft snowballs, slide on ice patches, and listen wide-eyed to stories whispered by the fire. Their laughter is fragile, a brief defiance of the harsh winter reality. But even they are expected to help, gathering kindling, tending small animals, or watching younger siblings as parents work. Hope beneath the snow. Though the winter seems endless, hope lies beneath the frozen surface. Each night you dream of the thaw, of muddy fields ready for planting, of green shoots pushing toward the sun. You remember the warmth of past summers and hold on to the belief that spring will come again. This hope is as essential as the fire in your hearth. It fuels your spirit, pushes you forward through the cold and darkness. So, as you pull your cloak tighter, breathe the sharp winter air, and prepare for another day of struggle and endurance, remember, you are part of a timeless story. A story of resilience, community, and the unyielding human will to survive. Rest now, as the snow falls silently outside your window. Let the crackling hearth lull you into a peaceful sleep, and carry with you the strength of those who lived and endured before you. The awakening of spring, life returns to the medieval village. After the long, cruel grasp of winter finally loosens, the first signs of spring begin to stir the land and your weary spirit alike. The frozen earth softens beneath your feet, and the sharp bite of the cold air fades into a gentle chill. You watch as snowdrops and crocuses push bravely through the melting snow, their delicate faces reaching for the timid sun. This is a time of hope, but also of immense labor. The survival of your family once again depends on your hands and your heart. The thawing earth and preparing the fields. The moment the frost retreats, you must race against time. The fields that lay dormant under snow for months are now a patchwork of mud and melting ice. The plow, heavy, wooden, and pulled by oxen, must break through this softened soil, turning the earth to prepare it for the seeds that will bring life and sustenance. The smell of wet earth and fresh grass rises in the air, mixing with the scent of wood smoke from village hearths. Every villager joins this collective effort, each day outside from dawn until dusk, hands cracked and muscles aching from toil. This season's success will determine the fate of the year. Sowing the seeds of survival. You carefully plant grains, rye, barley, wheat, along with vegetables such as peas, beans, and onions. These seeds are precious, saved from last year's harvest, and you treat them with reverence. Each handful cast into the soil carries your hopes and fears. Precision is key, the right depth, the right spacing. The success of your crops depends on the wisdom passed down through generations, the careful balance between human knowledge and nature's unpredictable moods. Tending to the animals as they awaken. With spring's arrival, your animals shake off the lethargy of winter. The sheep's wool thickens, the cows begin to produce milk once more, and the chickens grow restless, laying eggs that promise new life. Your daily chores expand. You must lead the animals to fresh pastures, mend broken fences, and protect the flock from emerging predators like foxes or hawks. The bond between you and your livestock grows stronger. Their health is intertwined with yours. The return of light and warmth. The days stretch longer, the sun climbs higher, and with it, a change settles over the village. The cold dampness retreats, replaced by warmth that encourages growth in both plants and spirits. Families emerge from their dim cottages to repair roofs, patch walls, and clean yards. The village buzzes with renewed energy, children play more freely, and the market begins to fill with the vibrant colors of fresh produce and woven cloth. Challenges of the spring season. Spring is not without its dangers. Sudden frost can still strike, threatening fragile seedlings. Torrential rains may flood fields, washing away seeds and destroying carefully tended rows. Disease also follows the warmer weather. Mud and stagnant water breed illness. You must keep your home and animals clean to prevent outbreaks. The village healer prepares remedies from spring herbs like nettle and dandelion, hoping to ward off sickness before it spreads. The strength of community effort. As always, survival depends not just on individual labor, but on the strength of your village. Neighbors help each other with planting and repairs, sharing tools, knowledge, and the occasional meal. The village elder, respected and wise, organizes communal work days and mediates disputes that arise under the pressure of hard work and limited resources. In this fragile balance, cooperation is the thread that holds everyone together. Personal reflections in the season of renewal. Amidst the hard labor, you steal moments to reflect. The endless cycle of seasons, the harshness of the past winter, the hope that spring brings, all these weigh on your heart. You think of your family, the future generations who will live on this land. You feel a deep connection to the earth beneath your hands, to the traditions that bind you, and to the resilience that has carried your people through centuries. As you close your eyes tonight, listen to the sounds of spring, the gentle drip of melting snow, the song of early birds, the murmur of the village settling into the season's rhythm. Rest well, for tomorrow will bring new challenges and new triumphs in your timeless struggle to survive and thrive. The arrival of summer, heat, harvests, and hard choices. Welcome back to the heart of the medieval countryside, where your world is shaped by the unrelenting rhythms of nature and the sweat of your brow. Summer has arrived, and with it comes both bounty and hardship. The sun climbs high in the sky, burning fierce and unforgiving, demanding more from you than ever before. The very air you breathe feels thick with heat and dust. The days stretch long, each one packed with tasks that grow heavier under the relentless sun. But this is the season that can secure your family's survival, or doom it to hunger in the months to come. The sweltering days and endless work. You awaken before dawn, the sky just a faint promise of light, and already your body aches with fatigue. The fields call to you, demanding constant attention. Wheat stalks bend heavy with grain, barley ripens to golden hues, and vegetables grow plump beneath the blazing sun. Yet this season is a race. A race against time, against the fierce sun that can parch your soil and scorch your crops if left untended. You drag yourself through the thick air to the fields, pulling weeds by hand, turning soil to keep it loose, irrigating what you can with water drawn from the well. Sweat pours down your face, mixing with the grime of hard labor. Your clothes stick to your back, and the heat seems to press against your very skin. Yet you cannot rest. The village depends on your strength. The importance of the harvest. The grain you nurture now will become the bread that feeds your children and neighbors through the harsh winter. One misstep, a day without care, a storm, or an infestation, and months of suffering loom ahead. You watch for the signs of pests, beetles chewing on leaves, worms burrowing in the earth. You know the ancient remedies, dusting ashes on plants, encouraging birds to feast on the insects, even scattering herbs known to repel pests. Still, nature is wild and cruel, indifferent to your prayers. The grain fields ripple in the wind like golden seas, and you imagine the weight of the harvest baskets, heavy with the fruits of your efforts. Summer festivals and fleeting joy. Despite the brutal work, summer brings moments of celebration. The village gathers for festivals to honor the sun and the earth, giving thanks to saints or pagan gods, depending on your village's traditions. Music fills the air, flutes, drums, and voices raised in song. You may find yourself sharing a humble meal with neighbors, coarse bread, sharp cheese, salted fish, and perhaps a sip of ale brewed in the village. Children play in the shade, laughter ringing out over the fields. For a few hours, the worries of survival fade beneath the warmth of community and tradition. The burden of water and disease. Summer's heat also brings challenges that test your endurance. Water is precious. Wells can dry up, streams slow to a trickle, forcing you to carry heavy buckets from distant sources. Without clean water, illness spreads quickly. Dysentery, cholera, and fevers are common. You learn to be vigilant, watching for signs of sickness among your family, isolating the afflicted, and relying on the village healer's crude medicines. You understand that the sun which nurtures your crops can also bring death. The looming threat of fire. The dry heat makes the village vulnerable to fire. Thatched roofs and wooden walls can ignite easily, and one careless spark can turn homes and granaries to ash. You and your neighbors keep a watchful eye on hearths and fires, especially during harvest gatherings and festivals. Firefighting means buckets passed hand to hand, frantic shouting, and desperate attempts to control destruction with limited tools. The fear of losing all you have built weighs heavily on every heart. Family, duty, and dreams. In stolen moments beneath the shade of an ancient oak or beside a cool stream, you think of your family. Your children's futures depend on your work today. You tell yourself to endure, to carry on through the pain and exhaustion. Sometimes you dream of a different life, one less harsh, where you might sit by a warm fire and hear tales without worrying about tomorrow's meal. But for now, the land calls, and you must answer. As you lay down to rest tonight, feel the heat of the day leave your bones. Hear the distant song of crickets, the whisper of the wind through the grain fields. Your world is fierce and unyielding, but so are you. Rest now. Tomorrow will come with new trials, new hopes, and the eternal rhythm of life in medieval times. The trials of harvest time, sweat, sorrow, and hope. The golden haze of summer begins to wane, but your work in the fields only grows heavier. Harvest time arrives, a season filled with urgency, sweat, and the pressing weight of responsibility. You wake before dawn, the cool morning air a brief relief before the sun climbs high and beats down mercilessly again. The race against time. Every moment counts now. The crops you have tended all spring and summer are finally ready, heavy with grain and ripe for cutting. But the skies are unpredictable. Storms could come and ruin everything in an instant. The looming threat of rain forces you to work faster, the sickle slicing through stalks in long, practiced motions. Your hands are blistered and callous, but you dare not pause. You and your neighbors form a chain in the fields, moving rhythmically to bring in the bounty before it's lost. Community effort and shared burden. Harvest is never a solitary task. The village pulls together, bound by the shared necessity of survival. Men, women, and even children labor side by side, exchanging tired smiles and encouraging words. Laughter sometimes rises, despite the grueling work, a brief reprieve from the strain. The fruits of your collective labor fill baskets and carts, which are hauled to the communal granary, a vital storehouse that will protect the grain from spoilage and theft during the winter months. The fragility of food storage. The granary is a fortress in its own right. Rats and mice are constant threats, as are mold and moisture. You help build raised floors and reinforce walls, using knowledge passed down through generations to keep your precious grain dry and safe. Despite your best efforts, every year some portion is lost. The fear of famine hangs over you like a dark cloud, a reminder of how precarious life truly is. The feast after the hard work. When the last sheaf is gathered and the granary is full, the village comes alive with celebration. The harvest feast is a time of thanks and relief, a brief moment when joy pushes back against the hardships of the year. You join your fellow villagers around long wooden tables piled with food, roasted meat, fresh bread, root vegetables, and ale brewed from the newly harvested grain. Songs and stories fill the evening air, voices rising in camaraderie and hope. Reflection on survival. But as night falls and the firelight flickers, your thoughts turn inward. You consider how every day of toil has been a fight against the elements, disease, and hunger. The cold winter still approaches, and you must prepare. The strength of your family, the resilience of your village, and your own endurance are what stand between survival and despair. Preparing for the coming challenges. You mend your worn clothes by the hearth and sharpen your tools, knowing that when the rains return, the cycle will start again. You store seeds carefully, hoping for a better season next year. Though your body aches and your spirit is tested, you take comfort in the bonds you've forged and the knowledge that you have done all you can. As you lay your head down tonight, feel the solid earth beneath you and the quiet murmur of life continuing around you. Rest deeply. The story of medieval survival continues, with new challenges and unexpected moments still to come. The harsh winter approaches, fire, frost, and family. As the golden hues of autumn give way to the sharp bite of winter, you feel the cold creeping slowly into your bones. The days shorten and the nights grow longer, colder, a relentless reminder that survival in medieval times is a constant battle against nature itself. The gathering chill. Each morning, You awaken to a frosty breath visible in the dim light of dawn. The ground crunches underfoot, frozen stiff from overnight cold. Your breath clouds in the air as you step outside, the thin fabric of your worn tunic offering little protection against the biting wind. The village is quieter now. The lively chatter of summer is replaced by a low murmur of preparation and caution. Everyone knows that the true test is coming, the long winter, when food is scarce, and warmth is a precious commodity. Fire, your lifeline. The hearth becomes the heart of your home, a vital source of warmth, light, and comfort. You carefully tend the fire, adding wood bit by bit, watching the flames dance and crackle. Smoke curls upward, a protective veil against the encroaching cold. But firewood is limited. You ration every log, mindful that the forest can only provide so much before it's stripped bare. Gathering wood means risking frostbitten fingers and long hours outside in the chill. It is a dangerous trade, warmth now, or potential hardship later. Clothing and shelter. Your clothes are layered, patched many times over. Thick woolen cloaks, fur-lined hoods, and leather boots guard you against frostbite, but even they can't fully stave off the cold. The cold wind sneaks through cracks in your humble cottage, and you stuff rags and straw into gaps to block the chill. You huddle close to family and neighbors, sharing body heat and stories in the flickering firelight. The bonds of kinship become as vital as any physical protection, a shield against loneliness and despair. Food scarcity and hunger's grip. Food stores have dwindled, and each meal is smaller than the last. You eat what you can, salted meat, hard bread, and preserved vegetables, but hunger gnaws relentlessly at your belly. The cold makes your body burn calories faster, and the fatigue weighs heavily. Sometimes you venture out to gather what wild roots or herbs remain, but the frozen earth yields little. The village huntsmen bring back small game when fortune allows, but their catches are rare. Illness and winter's toll. The harsh conditions breed sickness. Coughs and fevers sweep through the village. Your neighbors fall ill, and you fear for the youngest and oldest who are most vulnerable. Medicine is rudimentary, herbal remedies, prayers, and hope. You tend the sick with what care you can muster, knowing well that some will not survive the relentless frost. The cold is an invisible enemy, striking quietly and cruelly. The power of community. Despite the hardships, the village does not break. The winter compels everyone to work together, sharing food, tending fires, and supporting the weak. You join hands with others, drawing strength from collective resilience. Together, you keep vigil through the darkest nights, waiting for the first signs of spring and the promise of renewal. Reflection by the fireside. As the night deepens, you sit by the fire, wrapped in a patchwork blanket, the warmth seeping into your chilled bones. You listen to the crackling flames and the soft murmurs of your family. The world outside is cold and merciless, but inside, this small circle of light and warmth is your sanctuary. It is here, in the heart of winter's darkness, that your spirit finds the will to endure. Rest now, knowing that with dawn comes another day, and with each day, the chance to survive and perhaps even to thrive. The story of medieval resilience continues, unfolding through the seasons, through hardship and hope alike. The struggle for warmth, clothing, craftsmanship, and community care. The cold no longer just nips at your skin, it threatens your very survival. You awaken each morning, muscles stiff from the night's chill, your breath visible in the thin, icy air of your modest home. Winter has settled firmly over the land, and with it, an unyielding battle against frost, hunger, and despair. Clothing, a shield against the cold. Your clothing is your first and most vital defense. Each garment you wear tells a story. Worn patches on your sleeve from months of hard labor. A woolen cloak once handwoven by your mother, now fraying at the edges. A hood lined with coarse fur stolen from the fox or rabbit. Clothing is precious. You patch, mend, and layer relentlessly because buying new fabric is beyond your reach. The cold pierces even the thickest of wool, but layers trap the heat your body generates. You pull your cloak tighter, wrap your hands in scraps of cloth, and cover your head as much as possible, for a few degrees can mean the difference between health and sickness. Crafting warmth, the art of making and mending. In the flickering light of the hearth, you learn skills passed down from generations: sewing, knitting, and weaving, transforming scraps into survival tools. You make mittens from old leather, patch your boots with hides, and fashion extra blankets for the family. Even children learn these arts early, their small fingers deftly stitching holes and weaving straw into mats. Craftsmanship becomes a quiet, vital form of resistance against the harshness of winter. Community care and shared resources. No one survives the winter alone. The village is tightly knit, bound by mutual aid and necessity. When one family runs low on firewood, neighbors share their stockpile. When food is scarce, a communal pot might simmer over a shared fire, nourishing many from little. You take part in this communal life, offering what little you can spare and accepting help when needed. In the darkest months, sharing is survival. The role of the village elder and healers. The village elder, respected and weathered by time, acts as a guide. They organize food and firewood distribution, advise on medicinal herbs, and mediate disputes. Their wisdom is a beacon amid the cold shadows. Healers, often women skilled in herbal lore, tend the sick with poultices, teas, and prayers. Their knowledge of plants like yarrow, willow bark, and elderberry offers a glimmer of hope, even if death still claims many. The threat of illness. The cold and damp weaken the body, opening the door for fevers, chills, and coughs to take hold. Without modern medicine, even a simple cold can turn deadly. You watch carefully for signs in your family: a persistent cough, shivering, pale skin, ready to care as best you can. The church bells toll for those lost, a somber reminder of winter's unforgiving toll. Mental fortitude, stories, and faith. Despite the hardship, your spirit is fortified by stories told by the fire, legends of saints, tales of brave ancestors, and hopes of spring's arrival. Faith, in its many forms, offers comfort and strength. Prayers are whispered with each breath, candles lit in small chapels or humble homes. The community gathers for Mass when possible, sharing song and fellowship, a momentary reprieve from the cold and a reaffirmation of collective hope. Preparing for the longest night. The solstice approaches, the longest night of the year, symbolizing the depths of winter's challenge. You prepare by reinforcing your home, gathering all remaining food, and ensuring the fire will burn through the night. In the silence, you reflect on your resilience. Every breath, every small victory against the cold, is a testament to the human will to endure. As you settle into night, wrapped in your patched cloak and surrounded by family, feel the warmth of shared struggle. The story of medieval survival is not just one of hardship, it is one of hope, craft, and community. The harvests end and the winter's grip, food, famine, and feast. The fields lie barren beneath a thick blanket of frost, their furrows silent after months of toil. The harvest is done, what little there was to gather, and now the real trial begins, surviving the long, relentless winter. Scarcity and preservation. Food is scarce, and every crumb is precious. You remember the hours spent bending over rows of grain, gathering the last ears before the first snow. The root cellar, dug deep beneath your humble home, is your only hope for sustenance in the coming months. Potatoes, turnips, carrots, and cabbages, hard, earthy vegetables that can withstand the cold, are stored here, along with salted meat, dried fish, and small jars of honey or berries preserved from summer. These provisions are your lifeline, but they will only stretch so far. Rationing and hunger. Rationing becomes a daily ritual. Each meal is carefully measured: a thin broth, a small piece of bread, perhaps a spoonful of porridge thickened with oats or barley. Hunger gnaws persistently at your belly, but you learn to live with it. It becomes a dull ache, a companion in your struggle. Children's faces grow thin and pale, elders grow weaker. The village feels smaller as illness and hunger claim their toll. The role of the village storehouse. At the heart of the village stands the communal storehouse, a place of last resort. Here, grain is pooled and guarded, distributed sparingly to those in dire need. The steward, often a grizzled man with stern eyes, watches over it with vigilance, balancing mercy with the harsh realities of scarcity. You might find yourself queuing in the cold, clutching a small basket, hoping for a ration to ease the gnawing hunger. Winter feasts, moments of joy and relief. Despite hardship, there are moments when the community gathers to celebrate. The winter feast, though simple, is a cherished tradition. On special days, the solstice, religious festivals, or the rare bounty of a successful hunt, neighbors share what little they have. A roasted hare, a pot of stew rich with herbs, freshly baked bread, and ale brewed in small quantities become symbols of resilience and solidarity. Laughter echoes through the village, and for a few hours, the cold retreats. Hunting and foraging in winter. When food runs dangerously low, some brave souls venture into the frozen woods to hunt rabbits, squirrels, or birds. These excursions are risky. The cold bites, and wild animals are scarce. Foraging for nuts, berries, or edible roots beneath the snow requires knowledge and luck. You watch these hunters return, faces flushed with cold and success, carrying their fragile gifts back to the village hearth. The toll of famine and the threat of desperation. Yet, famine is never far away. When the winter is harsh and supplies fail, desperation seeps in. Stories circulate of families forced to leave their homes, wandering in search of food, or worse, turning to theft and crime. You understand the fragile balance on which your village's survival rests, between charity and suspicion, hope and despair, faith and fortune in times of scarcity. In these darkest days, faith offers a beacon. Prayers for a mild winter, for a fruitful spring, are whispered in humble chapels. Pilgrimages to holy sites become acts of desperation and hope. Some villagers keep small talismans or charms believed to bring luck and protection against starvation and misfortune, preparing for the last stretch of winter. As winter deepens, you prepare for the final stretch, when the food stores will be at their lowest, and the cold most bitter. You gather all scraps of cloth for extra warmth, secure the hearth's firewood, and steel your mind for the days ahead. Together, the village leans on its history, its traditions, and its unwavering spirit. Tonight, as you wrap your hands around a thin cup of lukewarm broth, remember, you are part of a long chain of endurance, where every shared meal, every ember kept alive, is a quiet victory against the merciless cold. A final ember, the end of winter and the continuance of hope. You awaken before the sun crests the treetops, the chill still settled into the bones of your cottage. But something feels different. The silence is not quite so heavy, and outside, the wind has softened to a whisper rather than a wail. You pull on your patchwool cloak and step outside, boots crunching on the last layers of frost. A thin sheen of ice still coats the well bucket, but beyond the fields, you see a shimmer of green. It's faint, a timid shoot rising through the cracked snow, but to you, it might as well be a miracle. Spring is coming. The first signs of life. Birdsong greets you for the first time in weeks. The sun, weak and golden, drips warmth onto the land. Children, pale and thin but alive, chase each other near the barn, their laughter tentative and bright. The village feels reborn. The last of the salted meats have been eaten, and even the turnips have grown soft and hollow, but none of it matters now. The earth is waking, and with it, so are you. Rebuilding, planting, and praying. The soil is softening, ready to be turned. Wooden plows, once buried under snow, are dragged from storage. Men and women alike bend their backs to the land once more, muscles sore but spirits high. The first seeds, barley, rye, beans, are sown with reverence. Every handful placed in the earth is a prayer, a plea to the seasons not to betray you again. You light a small candle at the village shrine that night, whispering thanks. You survived. Not all did. But you did. And so did the land. Remembering those lost. The cold took more than crops and comfort. It took friends, neighbors, elders whose wisdom once filled the long winter nights. Their chairs sit empty by the fire. You find yourself lighting candles for them, speaking their names aloud. There's grief, yes, but also gratitude. In surviving, you carry their stories forward. The feast of renewal. In celebration of the thaw, the village organizes the first proper feast in months. It's modest, a stew of spring onions, herbs, and whatever scraps are left, but it feels rich beyond measure. Musicians play again. Folk dances erupt in the muddy square. Children wear flower garlands in their hair. You laugh until your belly aches, until the sun dips and the stars return, not as threats but as gentle watchers. What the cold taught you. You learned to fear the cold, yes. But you also learned something greater, resilience. You learn that warmth comes not only from fire but from others, a shared meal, a song sung together, a hand offered in the dark. You learn that survival is not just endurance but hope, ritual, and community. Even now, as the cold recedes, its memory lingers. It reminds you how far you've come. The final night. That night, the last true cold wind passes through the thatch. You sit by the fire one last time this season, wrapped in your worn cloak, staring into the coals. The embers glow faintly, like stars in a dark sky. You listen to the quiet crackle, the peaceful hush of a land exhaling after months of strain. You pull your blanket close, rest your head on the rough wooden wall, and feel, finally, safe. Tomorrow, spring will rise in full. The cycle begins again, but for now you sleep, not from exhaustion, but from peace. And now, dear listener, you've traveled with me through the frost-covered paths of a forgotten age, from the first creeping cold to the final thaw. You've worn a peasant's boots, shared their hunger, their hearth, their fears, and their quiet triumphs. If you're still here with me now, curled under your blanket, perhaps with a fan humming softly beside you or the warm flicker of a candle nearby, I want to say thank you. Please leave a comment telling me where in the world you're listening from and what time it is. I read every one and love imagining this little community scattered across time zones and continents, united for a moment in these nighttime tales. If this journey moved you, subscribe, like, and know that there are more adventures ahead, more history to dream through, more stories to fall asleep to. Until then, sleep warm, sleep well, and may your dreams be filled with the crackle of the hearth, the scent of spring, and the strength of those who came before you. Good night.